Hello friends, my name is Christiana Chenwanuja. I'm a student of Brigham University, Idaho, and today I'll be presenting to us a discussion that has been bothering most of us. And this discussion is about male and female communication. You know, many of us have different ideology when it comes to communication in either the male or the female. Okay, so first I would like to highlight the general purpose, and this general purpose is to help educate each and every one of us here and to inform us about the difference between communication in male and the female, and to also point to you the specific purpose of this particular discussion. Now, and this particular discussion purpose is to create an impact on people's knowledge of the differences between male and female communication. And I also have my thesis statement. And my thesis statement is that male and female communication differs in so many ways. For instance, women use conversations to express their ideas, increase social emotions, and build relationship with everybody. Women also want to feel supported, heard or understood, and even respected. While in the male conversation aspect, male have a perspective that is often more pragmatic, and while the women share their feelings, men strive to identify and solve problems. To give you the introduction of this my speech today, I would like to first explain what communication is. It is an apparent answer to a painful divisions between self and others, whether in private or in public. It can also be an inner thought and an outer world, just as stated by Jessica Sinado, who elaborated that male and female differences in communicating conflict in Coastal Carolina University, Fall 12-15-2011. These theories of gender differences mainly include social cultural theory, which was stated by Wood and Eagerly in 2012. These theories are more complementary, and more of the findings of gender differences can be explained by one or more of the above viewpoints. We also have Meyers, Levi, and Locking, who stated this in 2015. In expansion to this, all gender inquire about strategies presently recognize social cultural components, and in this social cultural component we have social and social path learning, generalization, media, and showcasing data. This hypothesis laid the establishment for the consideration of sexual orientation contrast. And my main body says that female are always worrying about how the other person will feel. Just like in relationship, women always think more about the men more than the way men mostly do, because majority of what they think about is how to make money, how to build house and all that. But women, when they are in love, they try to make sure that they care for the person they are in love with. Okay, females are always worrying about how the other person will feel during their interaction, while male typically care only about their status, their social status, just like I said. According to Wood in 2011, masculine speech communities tend to regard talk as a way to accomplish concrete goals, exert control, preserve independence, entertain, and enhance status. And you can find that in page 130 of this manual. The word instrumentally is used in Wood's explanation of masculine speech as a means to accomplish instrumental objectives. In other words, make their intelligence known. Men have been found to interrupt each other in conversations more frequently, and thus are noted for conversation command and speaking for longer lengths of time, though they may talk for a longer amount of time. Wood says that masculine speech tends to be direct and assertive. You can find that in page 131. Compared to feminine speech, the masculine speech also tends to be more abstract as well as less emotionally responsive than feminine interactions. While Wood points out the differences that exist between feminine and masculine speech patterns. Armstrong in 2009 interprets the communication values of men and women based on whom they are interacting with, whether it be someone of the same or of the opposite sex or gender. Armstrong's research found that women's greater value for effectively oriented skills in both same-sex and cross-sex friendships is explained in part by their greater femininities. And you can find this in page 235 of the same manual. According to this study, women value effectively expressions of emotion oriented skills more than instrumentally (competitive) oriented skills, which explains why women are less content with their cross-sex relationship than men. It was found that the sex of the friend also has an influence on communication values. There were, however, no differences in the male's instrumental skills values and those of females. Both Wood and Armstrong's research compare the value of communication to males and females. The worth of communication to a male is not equivalent to the significance a female places on interaction. According to Wood and Armstrong, men are less emotionally responsive with others, while females' conversations thrive on establishing and maintaining relationships by expressing their feelings. Due to the differing views of communication, the content of conversation may differ from one sex to another. According to William and Verdi's study in the year 1992, investigated communications pattern in all male and all female and or mixed sex groups. In their study, they found that men are task-oriented, while women are still friendlier and more personally oriented. Their research are consistent with previous research suggesting that men have task-oriented communication pattern while women communicate social emotionally. So you see, the way women interact, socialize with people, communicate is different from the way the male counterpart does theirs. Clerk, Docum, Hayes, Huang, Liu, Ramsey, and Spurrier's article in 2004 stated initial encounter of young men and women, impression and disclosure estimates. That's the name of the topic. It's based on a study examining male/female interaction. Since males are less emotional in their conversation, this study investigated the disclosure by males in comparison to information shared by females. Women disclosed more information than their male partners. Just like, for instance, me, I mostly share everything with my partner, whereas he doesn't. He shares the one he feels is something that he likes, or something he feels he can share, saying that he doesn't want to bother me with his stuffs and all that. But it's good that you share. However, in women, just like me, we share everything. We don't leave any stone unturned. Okay. Women disclose more information of their interaction. The men regarded their interaction as more disclosing than the women's notes expressed. Researchers found that there was no significant difference between men and women in the level of social attractiveness to their partners. There was also no significant difference in the measure of their attribution of positive traits to their partner, and both sexes viewed their partner positively. Men and women assumed that they had conveyed an equally positive impression of themselves to their partner, and you can find this in the same manual, page 705, and it is stated by Clerk and so many other authors. In their results, researchers also found that there is a consistent pattern for both men and women. The more the partner was perceived to have disclosed, the more positively the partner was viewed, both in terms of social attractiveness and positive attributes. And you can still find it in the same page 705. Newman, Bloom, Handelman, and Pinbaker in 2008 also studied the difference between male and female which possesses in communicating. Their text entitled Gender Differences in Language Use. Okay, differences in language use. This examines various studies to determine whether or not men and women used language differently, and if so, how and why. Their research led them to identify that gender differences in language use reflect a complex combination of social goals, situational demands, and socialization. Their findings suggest that previous research found that men use languages to give information instrumentally, while in the women aspect, they use verbal interaction to simply socialize without any underlying purpose. They found that as women discussed their thoughts, emotions, senses, other individuals' negations, and utilize verbs in present and past tense. Male conversations consisted primarily of occupation, just as I stated before, money, sports, articles, prepositions, and long words. Majority of the things that men do talk about is how they need to make money, how they need to build house, how they need to take a chieftaincy title, how so many things. That is just what men, or their sports, the sports they love, whether it be football or maybe tennis ball, basketball, and all that. That is just what they normally talk about. Okay. Okay, and this was actually stated by Newman and many other authors in 2008, and they discussed their similarities as well. Contrary to popular stereotypes, men and women were indistinguishable in their references to sexuality, anger, time, their use of first person plural, the number of words in question marks employed, and the insertion of qualifiers in the form of exclusion words. Example: birth, although, and you can find this in page 209. Okay, sorry, 229. And also, Kim and Jean in 2000 studied a more specific area of communication between male and females, the use of cell phones. In their article, in a different voice, they questioned the interpersonal motives for using mobile phones and whether or not a gender-specific difference in the use of phone exists. Their research found that women use text messaging more than men, and men use verbal phone communication more than women. The ideas of expressive versus instrumental communication, as well as communal and genetic dimensions, are also discussed. Their research indicates that women use cell phones more than men because it is their way of maintaining close personal relationship and establish their intimacy with others who are far away. In the gender-linked differences in the use of linguistic strategies in face-to-face communication, Sama and Ali Bashi in 2007, researchers examined the differences between male and female communication strategies. Unlike Kim and Jean in the year 2000, they studied the linguistic differences that exist in face-to-face interaction after conducting research from data gathered from 20 face-to-face conversations in both mixed and same-sex interaction and education, and less educated participants. Researchers found significant differences between male and female use of linguistic strategies. In non-mixed setting, there is a significant difference between educated and less educated participants. Higher educated subject use of linguistic strategies is different from that of the less educated. When considering linguistic strategies in mixed setting, there is no significant difference between males and females when they have equal education. Instrumentally is discussed in the research regarding the content of communication. In the article of Clegg, Duncan, Hayes, Guag, Liu, Ramsey, Spiro, Newman, Grom, Handelman, Pennebaker, Kim, and Jean, the instrumental means of communicating leads to different types of interpersonal communication. From the female connecting purpose of interaction, all of these researchers found that males communicate to establish and maintain a prestige of power and dominance. These authors also seems to agree that women communicate with others in mind, constantly trying to find ways to improve their relationship by relating to the other person. Sama and Ali Bashi, as well as Clegg and many more authors, found that when speaking face to face, males and females can be expected to act differently. Just like now, I'm having some kind of challenges. The way I interact with people, maybe during text messaging, is quite different from the way I communicate with them physically, like face to face. I prefer talking to someone physically because the person would see my facial expression, and the person will tend to understand me the way I am than the way I type. The person can read meaning into the typing that I do other than the way I do it physically. So it is important that we know the differences between these two things. And this also stated that when speaking face to face, males and females can be expected to act differently, just like I stated. Kim and Jean's research on the use of mobile phone is concrete evidence that females and males communicate through media differently, just as if they were face to face. Morley and Shockley Zalabak in the year 1985 said that on average, female managers were 2 times as accessible to employees as were male managers, and nearly all females admitted to having difficulty saying no to subordinates, while males did not find it difficult to deny employees' requests. Morley and Shockley Zalabak also found that female managers and support personnel sent more regulative and informative messages to peers, while the males send more innovative messages. We also have the non-verbal communication behaviors. The differences in communication are not just identified in verbal interaction. Researchers on non-verbal behaviors and gestures also demonstrate variation by sex. In Chapter 6 of Gender Lives 2011, Wood concentrates on the use of non-verbal communication by males and females and how techniques may differ between the two sexes. Wood believes these non-verbal behaviors are learned based on gender and culture. Because each culture differs, you find out that the way the female in America would react to things or communicate is different from the way a female in Africa would behave to a particular situation or communication. Wood's main concern is nonverbal communication and the reflection and expression of sex. Compared to women, men tend to use greater volume and stronger inflection to highlight their ideas and add to the force of the position. And you can find that in page 142. According to Wood, men also take up more personal space, while women usually keep themselves enclosed, being careful not to stand out too much, which is probably why women are more likely to surrender their space than the men. Wood also uses the non-verbal interactions of haptics, kinetics, paralanguage, and physical appearance to define the differences between males and females in non-verbal behavior. One major difference between men and women in regarding to reading non-verbal cues is that females exceed males in the capacity of decode non-verbal behaviors, and more accurately discern many emotions that others may feel. And you can find that in page 153. Focus on the differences in non-verbal communication within intimate relationship. The authors argue that a significant difference in specific non-verbal behaviors between men and women exists in relationships. They also found differences among the relationship types in certain responses. Their research supports the idea that there is a difference in non-verbal communication between gender and the different stages of relationships. They came to this conclusion by the means of a questionnaire. They used questionnaire that helped participants reflect on their current or past relationships and answer questions regarding their non-verbal perceptions based on cis, like type, questions. Wood, Princeton, and Poyenot-Carter studied the existence of non-verbal communication within interaction. Both pieces by these authors addresses the sex differences of non-verbal use found in interaction, just as the others interpret verbal communication by males in comparison of females. These non-verbal cues all lead back to the purpose of the communication, relationship values. That is the next point. If the ways in which men and women communicate differ, then the underlying meaning of masculine relationship must differ from those feminine relationships. In chapter 9 of Wood, Gender Lives 2011, the gender styles of friendship are broken down. The masculine and feminine socialization beginning in childhood cause men and women to form different ways of communicating, as well as valuing different aspects of relationships. This chapter discusses the theories of how men and women form and maintain relationships on both friendship and romantic levels. Wood introduced the male deficit model, which discusses the cultural assumption that men are less skilled in developing and sustaining personal relationships, and you can find that in page 208. Wood also discusses the male inability to express himself in relationships. The Atlantic parts of the alternate paths model is discussed, which suggests that masculine socialization causes men to be reluctant to share feelings, which limits their ability to practice emotional talk. Wood goes on to explore the differences in male relationship development versus that of the women or the females. Wood reveals that men and women look for different qualities in their significant other. Issues may exist in gendered relationships because men and women value different aspects of communication. Once again, the research of Princeton and Poyenot-Carter in 2010 is relevant. Their research found women rated items concerning non-verbal communication statistically higher on most of the items compared to men, while men rated the importance of non-verbal communication as more important, and it has to change and increase in the relationship in order for the relationship to work. And you can find that in page 4. The sex differences in non-verbal communication can also cause messages to be misinterpreted in cross-sex interaction. Edridge, Sylvia, Jones, Atkins, and Christensen in 2007 demonstrated the issues that may arise in cross-gendered relationships due to the conflict of communication interests. The study concentrated on demand withdrawal theory. Demand withdrawal occurs when one person is prodding for a conversation while the other is avoiding interaction. According to Edridge and many other researchers, the research on demand withdrawal theory consistently demonstrate that women are more often in the demanding role and men more often in the withdrawing role, meaning that women seek interaction while men resist partaking in dialogue. The result of demand may differ based on the relationship, but the partner who has the burden of making change may find this demanding behavior aversive and may resort to withdrawal and avoidance to reduce conflict and avoid change. And you can find this in page 219. We also Note researchers find that wide demand, and husband withdrawal were the most popular. These behaviors are also found to be prevalent in relationships in distress, and that can also be one of the reasons of many divorces in the world today. A study by Renz Rothbard and Shohan in 2004 investigated males and females and demand withdrawal. Their research found that women are typically responsible for making demands in the relationship, while men tend to withdraw, which causes a problem in their relationship. According to the researchers, the social structure hypothesis suggests women are often more demanding because they are more easily satisfied than women. Demand withdrawal is also discussed in a study by Seifert and Schwartz in the year 2011. They define spousal demand as a behavior characterized by criticizing, nagging, and making demands of the other partner. And you can find this in page 263. They also define withdrawal as avoiding confrontation and becoming silent. Christine and Harvey in 1990 also stated that they associate demand with attacking and having hostility and withdrawal to avoidance. Both styles of communication were associated with one's own subjective well-being, which is called SWB in abbreviation. All their feelings of content with their relationship. Thus, Seifert and Schwartz stated that both spouses' demand and withdrawal styles are expected to be inversely related to their own as well as their partners. Subjective well-being in 2011, they found that the more a woman engaged in conflict, the lower the man's subjective well-being became. This result ran congruent with a study by Machett and Hawk in 2003, which found a positive relation between women's attacking styles and men's negative affect. And you can find that in page 264. When trying to understand a foreign language, interpretations may be skewed. The same risk exists in cross-gendered interaction. Wood in 2011 described some gender-based misinterpretations of communication in chapter 5 of Gender Lives. Wood highlighted 5 specific troublesome scenarios of cross-gender communication, showing support, troubles talk, the point of story, relationship talk, and public speaking. Showing support is a difficult task to uphold in a male-female relationship because men offer each other support differently than women support women. When men support women, they often seem as though they are dismissing the female's feelings because they are not sympathetic. The intentions for engaging in troubles talk for men and women differs. Men relate the issue at hand to previous experiences when women just want sympathy, and women offer an interest of the man's problem in a way that is excessive to men and makes them feel intruded upon, causing them to withdraw. Men and women also share information differently. According to Wood in 2011, masculine speech is linear and gets to the main point right away without elaborating on details, while feminine speech embeds information and details because they value the relationship relationship level of meaning. These differences in dialogue structure often cause barriers in male-female communication because feminine and masculine rules about details differ. Men often find feminine accounts wandering and tedious, while the masculine style of storytelling may strike women as leaving out all the interesting details, and you can find that in page 134. In regards to the maintenance of relationship, women find it very important to discuss the relationship. However, men are interested in discussing relationship only if there is a particular problem to be addressed. And this was stated by Wood in 2011, page 143. With all of these communication differences and interpretation, it is hard to transmit positive messages to one another, but more drastically in times of depression. Harper and Sandberg in 2009 questioned if a correlation exists between depression in one or both spouses and poor effective problem-solving communication. The main purpose of their article, Depression and Communication Processes in Later Life Marriages, is to show that if either the husband or the wife is more depressed, effective communication and problem-solving processes are impaired for the couple. In circumstances when both the husband and the wife are depressed, effective communication and problem-solving are worse than when only one partner is depressed. Communication scores are worse on behalf of both the husband and wife when one or both partners is depressed than when neither of them are depressed. Even though long-term married couples develop an ability to handle challenging situations, Harper and Sandberg's study shows that when one or both spouses is depressed or has signs of depression, effective communication and problem solving deteriorates. Sullivan in 2004 stated that there are significant differences between the sexes in areas such as self-disclosure, anger, and non-verbal communication. According to Sullivan, self-disclosure refers to those messages through which the person sends information about himself or herself, and you can find that in page 122. Sullivan explained further that males argue and communicate anger more than females. While females are reluctant to express aggression and anger, males view this as acceptable behavior, and thus males engage in more aggressive interaction than women. In Sullivan's studies of athletes, he found that females exchange more non-verbal messages overall, but they also displayed quite different non-verbal behavior than men, and you can find that in page 123. It was also found that male athletes were more likely to communicate anger and be confrontational than the female. Research has also shown that the manners both male and females display during time of anger similarly under some conditions, while other times they do not. Their research stated specifically women's and men's scripts for anger in heterosexual relationships were in similar situation in which the angered person close to express anger in a positive or pro-social way, and you can find that in page 309. Therefore, their research defends the idea that men and women may act differently, but depending on the situation at hand, they may act in the same manner. In conclusion, I would say that it's not easy to communicate. However, it is best when we communicate effectively, because many relationship difficulties can cause partners to feel triggered, and ineffective communication can lead to feelings of anger, hurt, fear, and worry. And that was stated by Dr. Carol Gilligan, a Harvard psychologist. He also went further to state that men and women may speak different languages that they assume are the same. And I have some of my references. I have Wood, W, and Eagerly, AH, and this was stated in the year 2012. Biosocial construction of sex differences and similarities in behavior. That is the name of the topic. And we also have Meyers-Levi J and Lokin B in 2015, revisiting gender differences, what we know and what lies ahead. J. Conjun, a psychologist, and you can find that in page 129 to 149. We also have Newman M. L. and we have Grimm, we have C.J. Handelman, L.D. and Pennebaker, J.W. in the year 2008, Gender Differences in Language Use, an analysis of 14,000 text samples, discourse process 45 and 211 to 236. I also have my bibliography. We have file winner London Image Institute, Differences in Communication Between Men and Women, 14 October 2009 in Atlanta. We also have Rachel Mohiban, Watchdale, Relationship Sites, 4 Differences in Male and Female Communication and How They Spark Arguments, and that was in the year 2019, December 11th. We also have Point Park, Public Relations and Advertising, May 2021, May 27, 2021, Gender Communication, Differences in Communication Styles, Jessica Sinado, Coastal Carolina University, CCU, Digital Commons, Male and Female Differences in Communication. Thank you once again for participating in this wonderful presentation. I hope to see you guys next time. Love you.